Hello and welcome to episode 4 of The List Makers, a mini podcast from the Doctor Who show, where we take a top 5 topic, each list our picks and then discuss them. But there are no hard and fast rules, it's all about the chat. And our topic today, I know Rob you're keen for this one, is top 5 stories from the 1980s. I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob.
And welcome back for our 4th episode, a very straightforward top 5 topic. The format, hopefully by now you've been with us for 4 episodes and you know, we each have a topic, we each give top 5 or so, and then we just chat about it. But we don't interrupt each other, even if we've got a snap. But Rob, you were saying just before we hit the record button, you're predicting multi-snaps this time.
Multi-snaps, Dave. How can we not? It's the 80s. There are only so many stories. There are only so many good stories. I'm predicting 2 or 3 snaps.
Well, we haven't had any snaps in our first 3 shows. I think we had a half snap, maybe, if you're generous, in the first one. So right. Are we going to break our drought in a big way? Well, let's find out. Stories from the 1980s. So everything is eligible from the 5th of January 1980, which was episode 3 of The Horns of Nimon. Will the Horns of Nimon make our list?
Amazing, isn't it? I always think of Horns of Nimon as a 70s story. But it's actually an 80s story. Isn't that crazy?
Absolutely. As was Shada.
That's right. Yeah.
Rob, it's my time. My time.
It is your time, Dave.
Rob, it's my turn to go first.
Yes.
And look, I'm going to dive into this. I suspect for long-time listeners of our podcast, some of these will be predictable to you, but I did enjoy just sitting down and working out my top 5 1980 stories. I'm going to dive into number 5 from the Davison era, from season 21, and it is Frontios. Now, this is a story where I think the 5th Doctor is exceptionally well written by Christopher Hamilton Bidmead. I think it's spooky. It looks really, really good. It's dark. It's got a cool spaceship design. It's witty. It's got an interesting concept monster. But Davison himself is just so good, so sincere, so funny. And I just love watching this story. So that's my number 5.
Okay.
Number 4, I've chucked in something from the Tom era. It's not the Horns of Nimon, and it's not Shada. It is from season 18. I ummed and ahed about which season 18 should go on this list, and that's something we might chat about afterwards. But I've gone in the end with State of Decay, because it's just such a watchable story. It's so Doctor Who. It's got Tom and Lala in really good form. I think Tom and Lala fighting is actually a really good on-screen dynamic in some ways. Matthew Waterhouse isn't bad. It's dark again. It's creepy again. It's got a clever sci-fi plot to it. I could watch this one again and again. And so State of Decay at number 4. We're now getting into perhaps the easiest picks for me. My number 3... We're into the McCoy era, we're into season 25, and we're doing Remembrance of the Daleks. This is a story that saved the McCoy era back in 1988. It's the story that I think is now regarded by almost every fan, certainly the ones I talk to, as being a classic. It's the one where the McCoy era really lands. McCoy's great, Sophie Aldred's great. It's got lots of Daleks doing lots of cool things. It's got Davros, it's got spaceships, it's got the military. It's in London in the 60s. It's got a great cast. It's got my first ever Doctor Who crush. It's a really good story that I really love. I had to have Remembrance in there in deference to some other McCoys that were fighting for it, but had to go Remembrance. I'm interested to see if you did as well. Number 2 and number 1 are in many ways personal picks for me, but I think they deserve their place. Number 2 is Planet of Fire. We are back to the Davison era, and in fact, we're back to season 21. This is a story, again, where Davison is written so well. I love his dynamic here with Turlough. I love the way he starts to work with Perry in here. The Master is there, but in a really interesting and different way. They're doing something new with him. Chameleon actually gets some proper good scripting and some good use and some good plotting. The location work is fantastic. They don't just go to another country and sort of waltz around Paris or some hills in Spain or whatever, but they really make it feel like they've gone to another country in Lanzarote for the start. But then the way they use that landscape of Lanzarote, the volcanic landscape, to really make you feel like this is an alien planet, I think is the best use of location filming ever in the show and worthy to it. But it's also a story about something. It does science versus religion without being a polemic. It makes a point without being nasty, and it gives religion its dignity. And look, I'm not religious myself, but I really respect the way it does that compared to something like Meglos only a few years ago, which is kind of just embarrassing in its simplicity.
Yeah.
So Planet of Fire, my number 2. My number 1, my top story from the 1980s. Look, anyone who's listened to the podcast or seen my Twitter feed knows my pick is Survival. I think this is where the whole of 1980s Doctor Who comes together and just works perfectly. McCoy is the best you've ever seen him. Sophie Aldred is the best you've seen her. Anthony Ainley is the master. I think this is his very, very best performance. Him subdued, calm, desperate, playing off McCoy, the way they're filmed and directed together, just circling each other, working off each other is brilliant. Again, the location filming, it's a quarry, but it's a quarry very well filmed. It's a quarry with gas in the pools, a quarry with pink skies and planets and volcanoes in the background, a quarry that's enhanced by that wonderful electric guitar score, which is one of the best scores of any Doctor Who story. Yep. It's one that's scary. It's one with real people, like real people from the streets of Perivale in 1989 that feel like real people in danger, fighting for their life. You really feel about what's going on. Again, it's got a theme, a real theme about survival of the fittest and what that really means. And it wraps the show up with that wonderful monologue, and wraps the show up thematically with the Doctor finally returning a Londoner back to London, having taken Londoners away from the city 26 years ago. So they're my favourites, or my top picks from the 1980s. Rob, you're expecting multiple snaps. Let's hear your list and see if we had some.
Well, I could announce it now if you like.
Go on.
We have one snap.
Just the one. Well, we have broken our snap drought, but not a flood. Not a flood.
No, and you won't know what it is until I get to my number 1 pick.
I'm going to put a little asterisk on my list of the one I think will be the snap, and we'll see if I'm right.
Okay. Moving into my top 5. At number 5, we have Kinder. I always talk about Kinder, and I really wish I could stop, but I find it one of the more intellectual Davo stories. Aside from Nyssa being sidelined in the TARDIS, and I think that was only a contractual thing with regard to how many episodes she was contracted for, not something the writer actually wanted to do. Everyone has something to do in this story. The story itself is quite fascinating. There are some great performances. And I also think it's really underrated, which plays into my feelings about it a lot, I think, and is why I mention it a lot. People who get it really get it. They say, yeah, Kinder is fantastic. Yeah. But a lot of people still don't. And I think, oh my God, this is like this little gem sitting there if you've not seen it. It's just marvellous.
Yep.
Moving on to number 4, and we're staying with Davo, and we're staying in the same season. I'm going with Earthshock. Now,
ooh, good pick.
I can't not have this somewhere. Not just to show that I'm equally at home with the more violent stuff from the 80s, as well as the fun, campy stuff, you know, because I've never thought there's a line between the two. I've thought, well, why not just like both, like the little girl says on that old El Paso ad. You know, it's ridiculously violent, but it's all part of a big tapestry, and I've got it here because it's just so... Oh, it's just so good. The return of the Cybermen, revamped Cybermen no less. That soundtrack, the death of Adric, Beryl Reid. You know, I know this story cops some stick from some quarters and some type of fans out there, and there's still a reason though why many will name check it, and it's because it is good. And that's all I've got to say about it.
Yeah.
It's just good. Moving on to number 3. We're into the McCoy era here. And I'm going with Ghostlight. Now, when I first saw this, I was like, huh? I was right at the end of my first flush of fandom. I was at the end. I was 14. I didn't fully get what they were doing. I thought this was a bit rubbish. Then, as an adult, I watched it again. Must have been on a VHS or something like that. And I thought, oh, look at this. It's an old house, and no one does old houses better than the BBC. And, oh, the costumes are good. And, oh, look, it's a really quirky script. And, oh, that song they have, That's the Way to the Zoo, or whatever it is, that's really weird, you know. And it all feels refreshingly different, like Doctor Who had suddenly taken this new turn in its life. It's kind of what Earthshock did, in a different way, of course. It's nothing like Earthshock, but in terms of just being like bam, here is something you haven't seen before for Doctor Who. I think it's very much like that. And I would have happily had another series of Sylve and Sophie doing weird stuff like this. Because when you think about it, what other children's TV of that time did anything remotely like this? It's really quite extraordinary when you sit down and think about it with that sort of mindset. So it had to make my list.
Top two,
Caves of Androzani. Very simple. Very, very similar to Earthshock in terms of there's a certain kind of fan out there who'll say, oh, no, thank you to this. Whether that's just to be contrary or what, I don't know. But this is just a great Doctor Who story. The direction, the story, the characters, Davo going out as the dashing hero he always was. It's just bloody good. And I get so upset sometimes when I see people say, oh no, it's not good. And I just think, oh, come on, it is. Give up. Moving on to my number one. Here we go, Dave. Drum roll. Remembrance of the Daleks.
I was right. I thought that was where you were going to go.
Okay. This is my number one because after watching it the first time, back when I was a kid, back when I was 13 years old, I didn't feel like, oh yeah, that was okay, or oh yeah, I quite liked that. I was like, holy hell, that was incredible. The story, the effects, the performances, the sets, the costuming. Doctor Who hadn't just gone up a gear from the clunkers of the previous season. It had got a whole new gearbox, and it was now installed in Mad Max's Interceptor, and it was running on nitrous oxide. It was like night and day to what had come before. And it's one of only probably a few times ever when I've been watching Doctor Who that I have felt astonished at what I was watching and felt, oh, I'm watching something special. Something special is happening right in front of me. Remember this in your brain for all time because this is a moment. I felt that with Blink as well, for example, not for the same reasons, but the feeling of I'm seeing something special here. Remember this moment was exactly the same, and I felt that as a 13-year-old with this story, and it's stuck with me to this day.
Well, that's a really incredible list there. A couple of points that I want to make, and I think first of all we'll just say that I think Remembrance is a very worthy to be our first proper snap on the list makers.
Yes, very much.
I'm surprised by one thing, Rob, and that's that you didn't have the 5 Doctors in there. I thought that was going to be a lay-down misere for you.
Yes, yeah. It's one that I tossed and turned on because it did seem so obvious in some ways, and it's not really a traditional story. It is a special. It is doing some really different stuff to everything else, so it almost sits out of time, out of no pun intended, almost out of place with everything else. It's got the Davison credits and stuff, and people count it as part of the Davison era, but it's almost like this other sort of thing, and I couldn't quite count it. I
ummed and ahed about it as well. I just couldn't put it there. If it was personal love, it might have snuck in, but I couldn't quite put it in as a top one. I did sort of and ah if I could get Androzani in there. I did and ah about Traken instead of State of Decay. Fenric was on my shortlist. Earthshock was on my shortlist. So a lot of overlap. And let's talk about overlap. A couple of stats for us, Rob.
Yes.
Of our 9 picks between us, 1 Tom, 3 McCoy, 5 Davo. And of those 5 Davo, 3 from season 21, and in fact 3 over 4 stories. Frontios, Planet of Fire, and Caves of Androzani. Doesn't the Davo era just come home with an absolute romp?
Oh, with a wet sail. It's just fabulous.
Yeah, and don't forget Resurrection's the other one in that 4. And look, I know it has its detractors, but I think that's a pretty awesome adventure story.
Oh, of course it is. His final series is great, but then again, I like season 19 as well, and 2 of mine were from that.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, I just thought it was interesting that we had a lot out of there, and 50% of season 26 also got a mention, which I don't think shocks me. And as I said, Fenric could very easily have been in my list as well, so that would have been 3 out of 4 stories from season 26, which, again, how good did Doctor Who finish?
Oh, finished great. I'll tell you something interesting, though. You've mentioned quite a bit from season 18. I almost had Warriors Gate in there.
Yeah, I can see that as well. I even look full circle probably was never going to make the 5, but when I sort of scribbled out my first 10 to 12, I think full circle could easily have been on that as well. So there are a lot of picks from season 18 that were in the mind.
Tom's final series, Davo's final series. Interesting.
And McCoy's final series.
And McCoy. No Colin. I almost had a Colin. I almost threw in Revelation.
I sat down when I was doing this list and I really thought long and hard, can I get a Colin in there? I don't want this to be another episode where we don't have a Colin. And, I was like, I'm really fond of Terror of the Vervoids. I think that's a nice adventure. I think Colin's great in it, but is it better than Remembrance of the Daleks? No. It's not.
Not at all.
I enjoy Paul Darrow in Timelash, but it's not a good story.
No.
I have some love for the two Doctors, but it's not a good story. Vengeance is a good adventure, but again, would I put it above anything I've picked? No. And I tried, but sorry, Colin, no picks.
What do you think about Revelation, though?
I think it's a very good science fiction story. It's not particularly good Doctor Who.
Right, okay. Because I'm quite fond of it myself.
Yeah, it's just a little bit too cynical and a bit too knowing for me.
But that's me.
Yeah, well, look, it is one of those things. I think if you're in the, if it vibrates with you, then it's really, really good. But I just find it's a story full of unpleasant characters I don't like. The Doctor doesn't do anything to save the day. It's Tarkus and Lil calling in the other Daleks that basically saves the day. I get why people like it, but no, it's not in there for me. Kind of like Ghostlight. I really understand why people like Ghostlight. I love Ghostlight Part 1. I think that's an excellent opening story. And then I just sit there and go, what are they doing? What are they talking about? Why did that guy do that? Why did that? I'm lost. I don't care.
Yeah. My point, though, that, what other children's TV was doing that? That was something that really stuck with me when I thought about that. And I thought, I think it is actually quite special in that sense.
Look, it is. It's a really interesting piece of television. Like, I respect Ghostlight. I respect Ghostlight a lot. In the same way I really respect Warriors Gate. And look, I enjoy Warriors Gate more than I enjoy Ghostlight. But Warriors Gate is, to me, a story you sit there and you intellectually respect and appreciate it. And I think the joy of Kinder, which was on your list, is that on the one hand you are intellectually enjoying and appreciating and respecting a very clever script with some very deep ideas, but it's polished off with some real just fun adventure, and it's a lot more watchable, I think, than a Warriors Gate is, and certainly I think than Ghostlight is. I think I can't sit there and just enjoy Ghostlight. I need to sort of sit there and go, well, what they're doing there is very well done. Yes, it's very good points, but I'm kind of not interested and I'm not engaged. Interesting.
And yet you like the NAs.
And yet I like the NAs, and perhaps it's because I was older when I saw them. Perhaps it's because I respect that they are doing something a bit beyond Doctor Who, or because maybe just the fact they're in book form means that I forgive them being a bit drier and a bit more intellectual. I don't know. It's an interesting point.
Interesting. This was fun.
It was. Look, when I saw top 5 stories from the 80s pulled out of the hat, I just thought we're going to have a bit of fun with that. That this topic is really what this mini podcast is all about. It's just about saying, you know what, we're never going to do a full 1 hour podcast on top 5 stories from the 80s. That would be indulgent. But a little 20-minute special just about our top 5, that's what the List Makers is all about. So, yeah, lots of fun. But time to pick our next topic from Turlo's Hat of Rassilon.
Yes. And it's like we're at the pub when we're having these conversations, Dave.
That's right. That's exactly right. They're just good pub conversations. And our next one next month is going to be top 5 Earth-based stories.
Well, there's a lot of those.
There's a couple of ways we could interpret that, but that's for next month. Okay. And until then, I've been Dave.
And I've been Rob.
And we'll make some more lists soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.